Good evening and welcome everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your night to join us for tonight's public hearing. This is a public hearing for the Hampton Square Phase 2 in Brownstown Township in Wayne County. My name is Ryan Blazek. I'm with EGLE's Environmental Support Division. I'm just going to be your moderator for the public hearing tonight. Just have a couple things to go through before we go ahead and get this kick started. First thing is just going to go through the agenda so you know how we're going to run the hearing tonight. We're going to start off with an introduction that we're doing right now. Big thing to keep in mind is that there's going to be two parts to the hearing tonight. First thing we're going to start off with is an informational session. So the applicant has an opportunity to present some information on the project, and then we'll follow that up with a question and answer session. So you have an opportunity to ask questions related to this application and project. That'll go to around 6:30. And then we'll go into the second part of the evening, which is the hearing part. And that's where you have an opportunity to make a statement tonight, an official statement for the record on this application. And we're also going to cover the other ways you can submit an official comment in case you didn't want to make a statement tonight, and then who you can contact in case you have further questions. All right, in case you haven't joined us for one of these public hearings before, all lines are going to be muted during the hearing, so you'll be able to hear us, but we can't hear you. However, you will have an opportunity to unmute yourself to make your statement, and you will be able to ask a question verbally during the Q&A question and answer session. We'll explain how we'll do that later. However, you can also submit a question using the Q&A box in your Zoom toolbar. You can just type that in, send it to us, and we'll answer as many of those as we can during the question and answer session. And then just so you're aware, we are recording this hearing. This hearing is recorded, and we're going to post it on our YouTube channel. Should be up there the next day or two. All right, at this point, I would like to invite our EGLE staff on the line to turn their cameras on and introduce themselves.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Hartz. I'm one of the district supervisors of the Warren, in the Warren District Office for the Water Resource Division. Jeremy?
Jeremy Richardson. I am the EQA in the Warren District Office, Water Resource Division, cover Wayne County. And we're here this evening because Infinity Homes has proposed to construct Phase 2 of Hampton Square residential development.
All right, thank you, Andy and Jeremy. So we're going to move right into the informational session. So we should have Reno Suave and Brad Kasuba in the audience. So we're going to unmute you in the audience, Brad and Reno, and then you'll have an opportunity to unmute your camera, or unmute your microphone, I'm sorry, not your camera. And I have your slides here, and then you can just tell me when to switch slides. And if you're able to keep it to around 10 minutes or so for your presentation, that would be great, so we have time for question and answer. So are you both there, Brad and Reno?
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
All right, thank you both. You can go ahead and take it away. Just let me know when you want me to move on to the next slide.
All right, Brad, you can kind of control the slides, or let them know when you want the slides.
Ryan will, but I think this one and slide 2 is all that you're going to need, Reno. So then you can go back to this one.
All right. Well, thanks again, guys, and good evening. My name is Reno Suave with Infinity Homes. I don't know if you needed that or not, but for the record, our company address is 42400 Grand River, Suite 112, Novi 4375. Again, also, like Brad said, Brad's here with us this evening presenting the environmental aspect of the property. Just to give you guys a brief background of the property, and I'll let Brad speak to his expertise here in a second. The Hampton Square project is located south off of Sibley Road, east of Inkster Road in Brownstown Township. It's located, the subject property we're talking about tonight is located just south of the front portion of the project of the Hampton Square development. The current property we're discussing tonight is around 53 acres. And like I said, to give you an overview of the project itself, this kind of has like a long history dating back to like 2002 when it was originally slated for development. I'm not really sure that the previous developer, I'm almost confident they're not in business anymore. But what was approved at the time for the project on the parcel of land that it's on, it was consisting of a mixed bag of like ranch and like townhomes, a high density ranch and townhome development at the time. The records show that the project received local, county, and state approvals to commence construction on development, which included a state issue wetlands permit, like I said, in 2002. So we're going on almost nearly, here in a couple of years, almost 25 years. And that consisted of construction for a detention basin, the detention basin, interior roads, infrastructure for the future housing, residential housing development. After, to my knowledge, or our knowledge, after the construction activities, after the permits and stuff were issued, the construction later followed in 2005, which included a complete rough grading of all the interior roads, the installation, the majority of the required culverts and drainage piping and so on for the project. In addition to that, the stormwater detention basin was mostly constructed for the entire development. However, I think to our findings, the outlet structure discharging into the Brownstown Drain wasn't installed for whatever reason, unbeknownst to myself. In summary, the project, the residential development didn't receive some permitted activities. However, due to, as a result of the financial, as we're all aware of, as a financial and housing downturn in 2008, things just kind of seized at that point, and our records show that the wetlands permit expired in 2007. To our knowledge, the development sat dormant for nearly a decade until our company purchased the remaining portion of the front phase. It's right off of Sibley. And we actually redeveloped that and worked with Brownstown Township to bring down the density from the high density multifamily that was once approved into larger single family lots, which is part of our, what we're proposing here on our subject property this evening. The current project, actually, to kind of touch on this for a second, the current proposed site plan was designed by our civil engineering company, Alpine Engineering, and really follows the same footprint that was originally designed, back in 2002. And there was also originally a permit as well, if I may add to that. Specifically, the proposed development includes the construction of 44 single-family homes and a total of 58 ranch-style, attached ranch-style condominium units. As part of our entitlements, we hired ASTI to conduct the wetlands delineation to identify the map and boundaries of the wetlands, in addition to also conducting a threatened and endangered species assessment to evaluate the quality and suitability of an area, and furthermore, to kind of just get a sustainable guide for development. ASTI submitted the EGLE and USACE joint permit application to ensure compliance with all state and federal regulations. And I'm going to have Brad kick it over to Brad now. He can kind of talk about more and just give you an overview of the environmental aspect of the project. Thank you. And also, too, I'm sure questions will come up. And if you guys have any questions for myself, just feel free to ask them as they come up.
All right. So I'm Brad Kasuba. Good evening, everybody. I'm a project manager at PA Group and ASTI Environmental. I have over 30 years of experience in biology and ecology, and I'm a professional wetland scientist as well as a certified wildlife biologist. I want to just provide a brief overview for you of the proposed development project as it relates to environmental issues. So just if you look here on this slide, I think on the right is most important. Reno kind of covered the rest of it. But if you look in yellow, that's the proposed Hampton Square project that we're talking about. It does have boundaries on west and east by the MDNR-owned Brownstown Prairie State Wildlife Areas, and those are shown in blue. And it also borders a railroad track to the south and the west that kind of locks right there, that kind of locks the project in. So it's kind of an isolated 53 acres. Though not connected, it is nearby what's known as the Fritz property or the Prairie property to some people. And that's shown in red, just to give you guys an idea. Thanks, Ryan. Just to give you guys an idea of the proximity to it. So, it's about a half mile away at the nearest. So this is a pretty large scale map to show the whole surrounding area. And then down at the bottom in green, we also show one of the conservation easements that's held by Southeast Michigan Conservancy. So we wanted to just give you an overall view of where this proposed project actually fits with all of the above properties. You could go to the next slide, please. So as Reno said, this was designed with Alpine Engineering. ASTI, we did work directly with them and Reno to come up with a plan that reduced overall impacts. There's a lot shown here, but the main things are that we show the wetland boundaries that are the dashed lines. And we have the gray areas, which are light gray, which are our impact areas. And they only total 0.971 acres, so we're under an acre of total impact. I'll get to that in a minute. And the yellow shading, which is a little difficult to see on this slide, but you can see the yellow tint that kind of takes up the majority of the property. Reno has that under an existing conservation easement. EGLE has the conservation easement on all of those wetlands and upland forests. So there's no proposed impact in those areas that are being protected. So if you take that into account, the uplands have been utilized to their most ideal condition for development. ASTI was hired to conduct this delineation in 2021, and we identified both state-regulated and non-regulated wetlands on the property. We flagged the boundaries. They were surveyed by Alpine Engineering and put on this plan. And we identified which were regulated and which were not. And then we, as Reno said, we submitted the permit application. And to minimize the impacts, we avoided regulated wetlands as much as possible. And we are staying completely out of any of the conservation easements that are shown in yellow to protect the regulated wetlands that are there. This includes suitable habitat for a threatened and endangered species as well, known as the Duke skipper. We did a survey for that various days throughout the window for finding it. It was not found, but the habitat was found, and it's historically known to be in the area. So the easements were put aside to protect this habitat. So the Duke skipper habitat is 100% encompassed within the conservation easements. So real quickly on the site plan, down to the lower left, you can see the detention basin. That just needs to be permit qualifications. We need to enlarge it, and we had to make the detention basin outfall more compatible with the Brownstown Drain, so that there would not be flooding or anything. So this was approved by EGLE, by their floodplain engineer, and by the analyst to submit. So we followed their specifications. Okay. And the floodplain impacts over there are minimal. There's only a net fill of 17 cubic yards at the Brownstown Drain, and the rest of the wetlands are under an acre of impact. So you can go to slide 3, Brian. This shows our wetland delineation. So you get a feel for where the boundaries are here in color versus where they were on the site plan. There's emergent wetlands on site, which are the light green, forested wetlands on site, which are the dark green, and the shaded orange are shrub wetlands. Various culverts are in place as well. And so we had to map those out. These were all put in prior to Infinity Homes buying the property. Some of them are broken, they're buried. I've been there, I've seen them. I actually did the wetland delineation on this with a colleague of mine. Took quite a while. So we covered a lot of ground, and we mapped it out. And we found that what's happened is the wetlands have established over time outside of the existing conservation easements. that's the only reason we require a permit at this point, is because that encroachment has added that 0.97 acres of impact. So we had to propose additional mitigation, which we did at a ratio of 1 to 1.5. And that's because only emergent and scrub shrub wetlands will be impacted in these areas. And this will be achieved through the purchase of EGLE approved mitigation bank credits within the V11 ecoregion. So that's the same ecoregion that this proposed Hampton Square project is in. So Infinity Homes has conservation easements here to set precedent on mitigation, and is also proposing additional mitigation as well. So in summary, AST and Infinity have worked closely with EGLE. We've had pre-application meetings, subsequent on-site visits with staff, and Infinity Homes is willing and on the path to ensuring compliance with all wetland regulations, Part 303 and Part 301, lakes and streams. Slide 4, Ryan. Okay, this one looks convoluted because this is a lot of different habitats. ASTI conducted assessments for threatened and endangered species and did a full report. We first consulted with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service using the IPAC, which is the current standard protocol for starting a threatened and endangered species assessment. It's the information for planning and consultation. We also purchased and reviewed through the Michigan Natural Features Inventory. So we received a letter from them, including comments for certain species that may be there or may not be there. And then we proceeded to do formal surveys, and we looked for rare plants and animals just about every square inch of this property. And we even looked for non-protected species, such as those that were listed as special concern. So Infinity hired us to go out of our way to do additional work that was officially not required to be done, but wanted to do it right. So we ended up with various habitats. We mapped them all. They're all listed here in the legend, and this is available on the My Enviro portal and the application. It's right here in the slide, so anyone can review it later. Very few
Brad,
of these.
Just to give you a time check, it'd be great if you could wrap up in the next minute or two so that we can get
Yep,
into
I'm
some
actually
questions.
gonna. I'm right
All right.
there. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. So we mapped them, and we found one endangered species. It was the Juncus brachycarpus, and we got a MDNR permit to relocate that under permit T 415. And our monitoring begins this year, and our first report's going out this year. I'm kind of excited to do that, and it's going under a conservation easement. So we also looked for other habitats, and we got a write-off from the United States Fish and Wildlife Service on listed bat species, and we need to use best managed practices for the rattlesnake, which we are going to use. Last 30 seconds, if you'd show slide 5, please. Just wanted to show everybody the historical maps in 2005. You can see the disturbances here. The detention basin was being put in. The roads were being constructed per permit. And then by 2016, you can see the complete road construction around the entire perimeter of the wetlands. Last slide, Ryan. In 2021, you can see heavy ORV use. The place has been pretty much turned into a mud bog, and the roads are being used for ORVs, which are causing heavy disturbance throughout the property. And we also have a current map that shows that that disturbance is still occurring. And you can also see Infinity Homes development to the upper right there that's already in place. So thank you for your time. And just like Reno, I'll be glad to address any questions.
Yeah, many thanks to you both
Thanks,
for that
Ryan.
information on the project.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll move right into the Q&A session here. So if you have a question related to this application and project, you can submit your question using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So just type your question in there, send it to us. You can click the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen if you want to ask your question out loud or verbally. You have that option. Just select the raise hand icon, and we will kind of go back and forth between the raised hands and the Q&A box. And then if there's anybody on the phone who's just calling in by phone, you can select *9 on your receiver, and that will raise your hand in Zoom, and we'll call on you using the last 4 digits of your phone number. So there are a few different ways. If you want to ask a question, only other thing I want to say is just for clarification, so this is a Q&A session. So this is if you have a question. If you have a statement that you'd like to make on this project, hold on to that for a little bit until we get to the hearing part, and then you can make your official statement. So I do have some questions that are popping up in the Q&A box. So I'll go ahead and ask those. How much do you pay for the property south of Sibley Road, and what's the acreage of the property?
I mean, we don't know that information as far as costs, property costs. And
All right. And then the next question, your report on the transplanted native plant was due in early October. Have you posted that document in the MyEnviro portal?
What, the report for the Juncus brachycarpus? That report is not due in October. That report's not due till the end of the calendar year this year. And furthermore, in order to, I think I might have got cut a little short on that part. We are putting it in a conservation easement so that the MDNR has it protected forever. And we've got an extension to get that easement language legalized. And then our first monitoring report will be completed by January 31st of 2026. That gave the plants in the prairie seed bank a year to establish, which is standard protocol for any relocation or mitigation. So we've complied with MDNR permits. Infinity Homes put the money together to move the plants. They will be protected in an easement, and we are not behind any deadline. And also, I think, what was the other question about MyEnviro?
Oh, if it will be available, or if it is available in MyEnviro, the report.
This is a DNR permit, so it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
I don't know of any requirements for the DNR that have to post something in MyEnviro for this, but I mean, we can definitely address that and give anybody the information as soon as we talk to the DNR and submit our report.
All right. Yeah, thanks for the comment, Brad. What alternative sites have been considered, and why were they not feasible?
We didn't look at offsite alternatives because of the previous permit that was issued, the previous work that was completed for this particular site.
Yeah, the review of alternative sites is commensurate with the proposed impact. So if this was a 5-acre impact, we probably would have had them look at offsite alternatives, in that this was the continuation of an established land use. It's not something that we've so far asked them to look at, but the review continues, as you know.
All right. Thank you both. Would you consider utilizing native species in the landscaping of the developed parcels to maintain a higher carrying capacity for those portions of the property?
I think Reno would first need to review the requirements set forth in any permit that he receives. I don't think we can even answer that question.
Yeah, Brad, I think they're I think the question goes more to the upland landscaping, just the
Oh,
landscaping. the
I don't know. I
development
guess
area.
that's a question for Reno then.
I guess can you expand on the question and kind of clarify a little bit so I fully understand what's being asked?
Yeah, Reno, the question just asking whether or not you would consider using Michigan native species for like your ornamental tree plantings and things like that. And Michigan native shrubs and
Yeah, I don't see, we'd have to talk to our landscape architect, I guess, and
Yeah.
there's gonna be a landscaping plan as part of this. I don't see why we wouldn't, but I could talk to our landscaping architect, see if that's something we can
Sure.
incorporate into our plan.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
Yeah, thank you. What evidence shows that the proposed mitigation or restoration will truly replace the ecological functions of the specific prairie and wetland system?
I'm gonna give that a whirl. Uh, the mitigation's a proposal only. There's no prairie wetland impacts on this property. There just isn't. The impacts that are happening are emergent and scrub shrub, and they're encroaching on the road. So, Infinity's proposed to replace that in a mitigation bank, and that's an EGLE approval needed thing. I think, did that answer it?
Yeah, that's good, Brad. Thanks.
Was there no, okay.
No, that's good.
Yeah, thanks. Next question, can application of insecticides be regulated on the developed properties, homes, yards? I'm thinking about mosquito sprays, which are non-selective insecticides. Is there any comment we can make or on that question related to the use of insecticides?
The only application that I'm aware of that could be regulated by the state would be to like a stormwater detention pond for the aquatic nuisance program. That'd be under the aquatic nuisance program. Not sure about like residential use or applications.
Yeah, Ryan, what what the question is suggesting is that there be, some kind of potentially some kind of deed restriction within like the master deed of the project, barring residents from using certain barring the use of certain insecticides or mandating only the use of certain insecticides. That's not something that the EGLE permit would speak to. Like Jeremy just mentioned, EGLE would only really be involved in like the aquatic nuisance treatment of the sediment pond, of the stormwater pond. Yeah, upland insecticide, herbicide use is not something regulated by us.
All right, thank you. Is there a recognition that this property is within the boundary of an identified globally rare ecosystem referred to as Lake Plain Prairie, and all the efforts to preserve as much of it as possible?
You want me to, I could field this one and see. No, in our opinion, and when we did our threatened and endangered species and wetland delineation assessments, I've personally been on this property for 5 years, off and on, looking at things. I don't believe, in my opinion, that anything meets the requirements, or I ain't even gonna say requirements, criteria set forth in MNFI classification for any Lake Plain Prairie. Um, Anything that is prairie-like, or like where the juncos were found, doesn't have the fluctuating water tables that a Lake Plain Prairie would have per MNFI. It's dry year round. These are upland areas only. I think the classification for Lake Plain Prairie would be that there are wetlands interspersed in those areas, and that's not the case on this site either. And a community by definition is a community, not, little patches of pockets that have been disturbed. So the reality is, in our opinion, no. And we also, when we did our U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, there was no critical habitats that overlapped the project area either.
Yeah, Ryan, I'd like a little follow-up on that question too. I mean, there certainly is a recognition of the importance of this general region of, southeastern Wayne County. EGLE staff, DEQ staff, DNR staff, internally here, there's been, that understanding and recognition for, a couple decades at least. I'm not sure how that, recognition turns into additional protections. So yes, there's recognition. We know it's a piece of property within a special region in the county. We certainly do.
But can I jump in again?
Yep, sure. Feel free.
Yeah. So thanks, Andy. I wasn't thinking on it on the big scale. I'm just so focused on the 53 acres that's in the application.
Yeah,
So,
right. The question was like
yeah.
the property, so it was like,
Yeah.
we know the property,
Yeah, we
and
do.
the property does have some special landscape within it.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
we also agree that we do not think that any of these impacts being proposed would impact anything that's currently understood to be Lake Plain Prairie.
Great.
All right, thank you. We're about the time in the evening to move on, but we'll get to one more question here. And there are a few more in here. I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of them, but will the road be shut down for the ORV use, or will that continue?
Brad, you want me to answer that, or you?
Hey, man.
I don't.
I know it's a pretty scary situation. It's your property.
That's the magic question. We've gotten complaints from the neighbors for years now. And Brad could tell you about walking the property. I've walked it a handful of times myself, obviously. There's a number of buried vehicles back here where people have went, like Brad said, mud bogging and stuff, and they've gotten stuck. They couldn't get there because you're so far back there. It's such a big piece of property. They've gotten stuck. We've notified the police. Nothing. It's just hard to monitor. It's hard to monitor it. So I mean, if I had my choice, I would, I would totally eliminate all of it. But we can't prevent people from doing what they do. We don't have people monitoring the project 24/7. So I wish we could, but it's just not. It's not feasible. It's not realistic. So we've even went as far as like blocking off all like the basically the stub streets. We put like berms there and stuff, and in some cases they just drive over it, or one guy even like cut a little patch of woodlands around it to get his car around it or something. I guess it's that important to bring your four-wheeler back there, right? ATV or something. So I wish I could, but it's not feasible. It seems like.
All right, well, thank you. We're going to have to move on. There are several more questions in there. Sorry we weren't able to get to all of them. Hopefully, if you ask the question, we were able to at least get to one of your questions. And then I will be sharing Jeremy's contact information a little bit later on in case you want to follow up in your question. We didn't get to your question tonight. There will be that opportunity. So thank you all for being part of that panel, for answering those questions, and for all of you who asked those questions. So the next part of the evening here, we're going to review those other ways to make a comment tonight. In case you didn't want to make a comment verbally out loud tonight, you can make a comment through My Enviro portal, and you can provide them directly into My Enviro by this link, and we'll put that link in the chat. Just a heads up, though, I believe they're doing some maintenance on the database tonight, so it may not be up when you click on it, but you can bookmark that link and come back to it to make your to access the information to make your comment if it isn't. So through My Enviro portal, event submission HQB-AVPF-P393Y, or by mail to Jeremy Richardson, EGLE, Warren District Office, P.O. Box 30458, 525 West Allegan Street, Deborah A. Stabenow Building, Lansing, Michigan, 48909-7926. And this public hearing will be open for 10 days. Or the public comments, I'm sorry, will be open for 10 days. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the hearing. So, Jeremy, I'd like to invite you to read the opening statement for us tonight.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeremy Richardson. I'm the district representative in the Water Resources Division of Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. I'll be serving as the hearing officer for this public hearing on EGLE submission number HQB AVPF P393Y. Then the intros. With me tonight is Andrew Hartz, the district supervisor for the Warren District Office. To describe how this is going to work tonight, I'll begin with some background information about why we are here tonight. I'll then describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments will be used. Following that, I will outline the procedures under which we will take your comments and then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. It will then be time for you to provide comments, and we will spend the majority of time tonight listening to those comments. At the end of the hearing, I will read the closing statement. By way of background information, the Water Resource Division is responsible for administering a variety of programs that help protect inland lakes and streams and wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes, and the Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging or filling a lake, stream, or wetland, constructing a dam, constructing a marina, placing shore protection, or constructing docks, and building in a designated critical sand dune area, wetland, or floodplain. The law governing those responsibilities is the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act, 1994, PA 451 as amended, Act 451. As mentioned, we're here tonight because Infinity Homes has proposed to construct phase 2 of Hampton Square residential development. Proposed activities include impacting 0.47 acres of previously impacted wetland to reconstruct an existing 1.79 acre stormwater pond, installing a new stormwater outlet to the Brownstown Creek, and placing 1992 cubic yards of fill material in 0.5 acres of wetland with a single equalization culvert. Mitigation is proposed for the project. In order for a permit to be granted, EGLE must find that the proposed activities described in the public notice meet certain criteria set by Part 31, 301, and 303 of Act 451. In general, we must consider the effect of the proposed project on the stream and wetlands. When reviewing an application for permit under the provisions of Part 301, EGLE is charged to make the following considerations as required by 301.06 of Part 301. 1, the department shall issue a permit if it finds that the structure or project will not adversely affect the public trust or riparian rights. 2, the department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any of the waters or other natural resources of the state. When reviewing an application for permit under the provisions of Part 303, EGLE is charged to make the following indications as required by Section 303.11 of Part 303. A permit for an activity listed in Section 303.04 shall not be approved unless the department determines that the issuance of a permit is in the public interest, that the permit is necessary to realize the benefits derived from the activity, and that the activity is otherwise lawful. 1, a permit shall not be issued unless it is shown that an unacceptable disruption will not result to the aquatic resources. 2, a permit shall not be issued unless the applicant also shows either of the following. A, the proposed activity is primarily dependent upon being located in wetland. B, a feasible and prudent alternative does not exist. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to give anyone interested in Hampton Square Phase 2 an opportunity to provide information that EGLE can use in making the decision whether or not to issue a permit. Please recognize that EGLE can only use the information you provide if it relates to the criteria that EGLE must use in making a decision. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition to the project. We will be happy to make note of your position, but please understand that EGLE is by law not allowed to base our decision on whether or not there is widespread support or opposition to the project. In just a moment, I will outline the procedures we will use for taking your comments. Before I do so, I need to mention that the notice of this hearing was published in the News Herald on December 3rd, 2025. As we discussed at the beginning of the informational session, if you have a comment to provide, raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar. To ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will follow these steps. First, the applicant and their consultant has already had the opportunity to describe the proposed project. Second, we will then call on those who have indicated in their registration that they would like to speak. After that, we'll call on those that raise their hand in their Zoom toolbar that they would like to make a comment if they haven't already been called upon. As a reminder, if you are participating in this hearing by phone only, follow the directions of the moderator on how to identify that you would like to make a comment. You may also submit your comments to the MyEnviro portal, email, or US mail. When all comments have been completed, we will ask if anyone else would like to make a statement. When your name is called, your microphone will be unmuted. As you begin your comments, please state your name and any group or association you may represent. Each person will be given 4 minutes to make their comments. We will indicate to you when you have a minute left. Please begin wrapping up your comments and end within the allotted time. If need be, we will indicate when your time is ended. I ask that we all be courteous and respectful to one another tonight. Please also recognize that EGLE staff is here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your comments on the proposed project and to listen to those comments. This hearing is being recorded, and your comments will be part of the information EGLE will consider in making its decision on whether or not to issue a permit on the proposed project. The public comment period for the public hearing is open for 10 days from the date of this hearing, ending on December 29th, 2025. Additional information and comments submitted in writing during the 10-day comment period will also be considered in EGLE's decision. Following the close of the public comment period, EGLE will make a decision to either issue a permit for the project as proposed or with modifications, or send a letter of denial. You may find out what the decision is by checking the EGLE MyEnviro portal website and searching for the application number HQB AVPF P393Y. Thank you for your attention, and we will begin calling the names of those who have indicated that they would like to make a comment.
Yeah, many thanks for reading that opening statement, Jeremy. Just a couple more things. It's going to be one comment per person. Everybody will have an opportunity to make a comment tonight. As Jeremy mentioned, you have 4 minutes to make your comment. You don't have to use that entire time if you don't want to. But you'll see a countdown timer counting from 4 minutes at the upper right-hand corner of your screen, so you know how much time you have left. And then when you have 1 minute left, you'll hear this sound, just so you know that you have a minute left. We're going to start with the people who indicated during registration that they wanted to make a comment. There's a list of 5 names. After we get through those 5 names, anybody else who would like to make a comment and hasn't made a comment can do so by raising your hand in Zoom. And if you're on the phone, by selecting *2, that will raise your hand. So we'll go ahead and start off. The first person is Connie Boris, and then after Connie will be Alexander Camp. So Connie, we are going to unmute you, and you can begin your comment when you're ready.
My name is Dr. Connie Boris, Executive Director, Wayne County Conservation District, a local unit of government representing Wayne County residents. Before I begin my comments, I would ask that Reno Suave would please have the Michigan Natural Features Inventory on that property to confirm whether or not that is Lake Plain Prairie, consisting of Lake Plain Wet Mesic Prairie and Lake Plain Wet Prairie. There is, I hear words about EGLE and ASTI having a lot of experience on identifying wetlands, rare and imperiled, but the fact is that is not true. In the waste management case, which took place on Inkster Road, neither EGLE staff nor ASTI, including Brad Kasuba, could identify the presence of rare or imperiled wet mesic flatwoods. That's why I'm asking if the owner would please have the Michigan Natural Features Inventory. Please review whether or not. I believe the applicant failed to identify Part 303 rare and imperiled wetlands, specifically the Lake Plain Wet Prairie and the Lake Plain Wet Mesic Prairie. Also failed to mention that critically imperiled Lake Plain Prairie is in the state of Michigan and is likely on that piece of land right now because it is adjacent to 2 MDNR prairie wildlife areas where hunting is allowed. Now, Part 303 states that a permit, in order for it to be issued, that impacts wetlands, which this one does, considering that you're also putting in a huge retaining wall around all of this, the applicant must demonstrate that the proposed project is either wetland dependent or that no feasible and prudent alternatives exist. The applicant did neither. A housing development is obviously not wetland dependent, and there are numerous off-site feasible and prudent alternatives. As of today, there are 76 parcels of undeveloped land, 4 acres or more, for sale in Wayne County, according to land.com. So you have plenty of alternatives to choose from. Also, the applicant failed to identify all the hydric soils on the property and really failed to conduct an endangered and threatened species survey at the proper time of the year. Now, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Michigan D identified several threatened and endangered species on this parcel. 2 federally endangered bats, 1 proposed federally endangered bat. Recent research, which was just done a few months ago, shows the documented presence of 7 of 9 bats that occur in Michigan being near that property. You also have federally threatened EMR. You have the federally and threatened in Eastern Prairie Fringe orchid, the monarch butterfly, migratory birds that are federally endangered, such as the whooping crane and the rufous redlot. They need that land for resting and foraging. So instead of the applicant responding, the applicant merely said, oh, there's no effect. Well, you don't have any data to support that. You failed to recognize the harmful impacts of proposed retaining walls on the fragmentation, the hydrology, and the eventual demise of the wetlands on that parcel. You also failed to include what the effects are on the wetland and the species of applying pesticides, herbicides, 6-PPD quinone, and other destructive impacts on the wetland.
Connie, you're out of time, so it'd be great if you could conclude your comments.
All right, EGLE must deny Infinity Homes application as it does not meet the statutory requirements of Part 303. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Connie. All right, so it looks like we have Alexander Camp. I'm not seeing Alexander in the audience. And then we have Leah Madison. I'm not seeing Leah either. So the next one up would be Jack Smiley. So Jack, we are going to unmute you, and then you can unmute yourself and begin your comment.
Can you hear me?
Yep, it's very soft, so you might want to speak up, but we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Jack Smiley, and I'm president of Michigan Land Conservancy. And thank you for the opportunity to comment. I recognize that this is a difficult permit application for the department to consider, particularly given its permit history. However, a renewed understanding of the ecological significance of this location demands careful, updated, and thorough scrutiny. According to the Michigan Natural Features Inventory, MNFI, the proposed development lies within the Sibley Prairie Complex, one of Michigan's last remaining Lake Plain Prairie and Oak Savanna complexes. While prairie characteristics on this property may not be immediately obvious to some observers, MNFI has clearly identified this land as an integral part of the Sibley Prairie Complex in its publication, A Survey of Lake Plain Prairie in Michigan. I defer to the professional expertise and judgment of MNFI, and the department should do the same. Lake Plain Prairie and oak opening habitats are globally rare and critically imperiled in Michigan, with less than 1% remaining. Sibley Prairie represents one of the last places where these ecosystems persist, supporting a number of rare and declining species that depend on large, intact landscapes. Extraordinary efforts should be therefore made to keep this property intact as much as possible. The proposed development configuration would needlessly fragment the site, undermining both wetland function and habitat integrity. This land should be protected not only for the rare species which may currently be present, but also as essential recovery habitat. Threatened and endangered species can only recover if additional suitable habitat is preserved to allow for population expansion. A particular concern is the likely impact to sensitive species such as the Duke's dipper butterfly, which depends on high-quality prairie habitat in large contiguous landscapes. The department should also reflect on its own role in shaping conservation outcomes. Small, fragmented conservation easements rarely sustain meaningful ecological value. Functioning wetland systems and viable wildlife habitat require large contiguous protected areas. Creating isolated easement fragments surrounded by development compromises the very resources these easements are intended to protect. Feasible and prudent alternatives exist to the proposed development that would avoid or minimize impairment of wetlands and associated natural resources. The proposed layout would result in unnecessary fragmentation of the site, degrading overall habitat integrity, and causing both direct and secondary impacts to wetlands that are purportedly protected by conservation easements. As designed, the project would result in the loss of wetland functions and values and the impairment of contiguous habitat. Any development of this site should be clustered or otherwise reduced in scale to avoid or minimize adverse impacts and to preserve the maximum possible extent of contiguous wetland and wetland associated upland habitat. In time, due to fluctuating Lake Plain Prairie hydrology, many quote unquote uplands may actually revert to wetlands. A feasible and prudent alternative would be to confine development to areas already served by the existing paved roads, even if that alternative involves limited impacts to wetlands nearest to Sibley Road. Such an approach would substantially.
And Jack, you're out of time. Could you please conclude your comments?
Okay, because feasible and prudent alternatives exist, this will impact the globally rare ecosystem, and the permit is not in the public interest. The permit should be denied. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for your comment. All right, next up is Evan Rosen. All right, Evan, looks like you are unmuted. You can begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'd like to thank EGLE first and foremost for all their efforts here and attempting to minimize impact. And I can see that a lot of work went into this. I'm an attorney. I'm a member of the board of directors of the Wayne County Conservation District. I'm also with Wild Ones Wayne County. Um, I'll speak, I second Jack and Connie's comments, obviously, but I'd like to, as an attorney, speak from a legal standpoint. I heard a couple of comments that were pretty alarming. Basically, EGLE has not looked at off-site alternatives here because of the belief that this is a continuation of an established land use exemption, and as far as I understand it, that is not the case. The continuation of an established land use exemption applies only to continuation, not expansion. First of all, the statute names things like farming, development, but it does not apply to new alterations. It does not apply to new construction. So this would certainly not be a continuation of an established land use and exemption, and as a result, um, reasonable, feasible, and prudent alternatives have to be considered. Not only that, off-site feasible and prudent alternatives have to be considered. Part 303, Section 303.11 states that EGLE may only approve a permit if the applicant demonstrates that no feasible and prudent alternatives exist that would totally avoid wetland impacts. Avoidance must be evaluated before minimization or mitigation. Only after demonstrating that avoidance and minimization are not at all feasible does mitigation and minimization come into play. And feasible and prudent alternatives are not necessarily those in the applicant's preferred location. And DEQ memos from 2011 make that abundantly clear. Section 303.11, subsection 5 requires the applicant to consider, quote, an area not presently owned by the applicant which could reasonably be obtained if it is otherwise feasible and prudent. Section 303.11, subsection 6 states that higher costs do not necessarily mean an alternative site is not feasible and prudent. The applicant must demonstrate that the increased costs of an alternative site are unreasonable when compared to the overall scope and cost of the project. The proposed cost increases must make the project cost substantially greater than costs normally associated with a particular type of project. As far as I can tell, based on statements made tonight, none of this was considered whatsoever because of the misapprehension that this falls under the continuation of an established land use exemption, which it does not. And failure to demonstrate the absence of any feasible and prudent alternatives requires EGLE to deny the permit. The applicant has not demonstrated the absence of feasible alternatives in this case. That's abundantly clear. Speaking more generally, snaking a housing development through the upland portion of the property and stating that it will not have any wetland impacts does not make any sense. Water moves down. People are going to spray, True Green's going to come through there and spray up their lawns, and it's all going to wash into the wetland. The enlarging the detention basin in the southwest portion of the property is obviously going to change the hydrology, as will all this construction. The kaleidoscopic, sort of multicolored natural.
Yeah, Evan, you're out of time. It'd be great if you could conclude your comments.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. We got Duke skippers here. We got this rare and endangered rush here. There's plenty of other trashed land to build on, and there are plenty of feasible and prudent alternatives that have not been demonstrated but must be according to law. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your comments, Evan. All right. That is everybody on the list of people who registered and wanted to make a comment. If anyone else has not made a comment yet and would like to, you're welcome to. You just need to raise your hand in your Zoom toolbar. You see that at the bottom of your screen. Just click the raise hand icon. We'll call on you in order. If there's anybody, I don't see anybody call-ins right now, but if there's anybody calling in, you just select *9 on your receiver. That will raise your hand in Zoom, and then we'll call on you using the last 4 digits of your phone number. If you ran out of time during your time making a comment, I'll provide those other ways to make a comment on the next slide, so you can write in and provide additional comments if you should choose to do so. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment who has not yet done so before we close the hearing tonight? And I'm not seeing any other raised hands. So if you'd like to make a comment, again, please raise your hand if you haven't already done so. And then while we're waiting here a couple seconds, just want to let you know the other things we'll go through. We'll provide Jeremy's contact information. We'll go through those other ways to make a comment kind of before concluding tonight. So I'm still not seeing any raised hands. So Jeremy, would you like to read the closing statement for us tonight?
Thank you for your comments and cooperation. We appreciate your interest in the proposed project and that you took the time to be here tonight. As indicated at the beginning of the hearing, you may submit additional written comments until December 29, 2025. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all comments received and make a decision on the proposed project. Just to remind those that may still want to submit a comment, comments can be submitted through the MyEnviro portal website, email, or US mail. The hearing is now closed. Thank you again.
Yeah, many thanks, Jeremy. I've got those other ways to submit a comment on the screen. We're also putting those in the chat. And again, they may be doing some maintenance right now on the MyEnviro portal. I'm not sure the status, but you can come back to that link and provide your comments. But you can also submit comments by mail as well to Jeremy Richardson, the Warren District Office, P.O. Box 30458, 525 West Allegan Street, Deborah A. Stabenow Building, Lansing, Michigan 48909-7926. As mentioned previously, the comment period for the public hearing will be open until December 29th, in case you would like to make further comments. All right, in case we didn't get to your question or any other questions related to this application, you can contact Jeremy Richardson at 248-773-1664 or at richardsonj1@michigan.gov, and that's RICHARDSONJ, the number 1, at MICHIGAN.gov. All right, before we conclude tonight, any final comments for us, Andy?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I just want to thank everybody that took their time, and we had 35 people participating in this event tonight. You know, public comment on any project that we public notice is important. You know, it's a holiday season, and I'm sure everybody's busy, but hearings are important, and we appreciate everybody taking their time tonight. So, comment period stays open. We'd be happy to hear some of this stuff in writing as well. So, comment period stays open for 10 days. Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, Andy, and Jeremy, and everyone else who was speaking tonight, and all of you for being part of this hearing. The last thing that I'll mention is just a reminder that the hearing was recorded. Will be posted on our YouTube channel the next day or two, so you can watch it again if you should choose to do so. And I hope you all have a great rest of your evening, and happy holiday.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.